comes and goes. So more things came about, so I have to kind of talk about it. So I'll start with, what I listen to every day. I want to start with one podcast, like one little tidbit that I listened to today. So we'll go over that, go over another one. The second one will be more interesting to watch because I actually try to do a little bit more to have the timestamps for the actual video. So I'm not just staring at a photo of the podcast. And then a news story that came out after that, and I hate that Trump ruined it, but try and weave in some stuff and some news and information to kind of show, most people probably know, but how connected things are. Anyway, so I will share this here. So this first podcast, listen to all the time, because luckily there's less Scott and more Ed, even though Ed's going to be, I've talked about him before, even though Ed remains the protege. And I'll be talking about AI stuff today. This particular podcast is about XAI, so AI things that they talk about. They talk a little bit about the investment portions. Then I'll talk about the weekly show with Jon Stewarts, in which he talks about AI, and he interviews Geoffrey Hinton. And if anybody who works in this field at all knows, got the Nobel Prize in 2024 for neural networks for the work that he's done done directly for 40 plus years. So yeah, so in that portion I won't necessarily be arguing with anything that a Nobel Prize winner says, a Nobel laureate as they would actually say, but I will say things because there is a difference between just what is scientifically possible, correct, and doable versus what we as a people legislate. So and then I'll show a few other things that people could look at for out of more interest that they want. Obviously, there's so many different books and articles and podcasts you can listen to, but there's just ones that might sound more doomsday-ish, but they will be. I think sometimes you don't have to look at like doomsday as in AI will be bad forever, or that it has to be, but just like where AI can be useful if it was to help people, not just to make money and make a profit just by getting people fired. So we'll start with this podcast here, or this episode. XAI teams up with NVIDIA and $20 billion funding round, and I don't really care about the Chinese portion. I'm just talking about one part of it. So I'm just going to skip to the 14-minute mark. Ed will just be talking with Ed Ludlow from Bloomberg, technology, Bloomberg News, and they do a lot of investments. They have their own deal desk and stuff and whatnot to get stock information. But what they're talking about here, and it leads into the conversation, is that XAI got money from NVIDIA to buy more things from NVIDIA. So it's all just a circle that I've talked about before of just money's spinning around in circles. And in fact, I'll actually pull it up while I ramble. I want to pull up an image that'll be really fun to look at. Let's see. Where would I be? While we talk about this, there we go. So I'll even just start with this image. This image here can just tell you everything that you need to know about the investments. It's kind of, let me zoom in here. It's not gonna let me because I pulled up the image right. All right. Well, anyway, all the arrows, the arrows do indicate, if you're able to see, I guess you might be able to, these different colors of hardware or software investments versus just actual investment. So actual money from the company. Services. So services can be different from hardware or software. It is kind of funny. So instead of having, this one mostly is going to be about hardware. There's also from Bloomberg News. So they only care about money. So still more conservative, but they're not lying about this because in the end, they just want to know where their money's going and what money they might get. So they don't really care about, well, they do care about politics, but not for AI necessarily. So anyway, you could see like how many arrows go back and forth of just NVIDIA giving money to OpenAI to then provide services to NVIDIA, who's giving chips to OpenAI or giving money to OpenAI in some way. And we don't really know actually what the $100 million is. It could be actual chips. It could be, I don't know, helping them pay interest off a loan that they already have. All this investments that OpenAI has already gotten within itself. It doesn't have any way in any loans or anything. It has no way of paying any of it back still. There's no conceivable way it can make the money back in some sort of reasonable time frame without, just getting a bunch of people laid off. So but then there's no benefit for companies to be had from that because the money isn't necessarily changing or being reduced. All that happens is the money is going from, instead of an employee's pocket, it's going to OpenAI's pocket. So there really isn't any productivity gain from a company standpoint. From like any company who uses their services, they're just going to be changing where their money goes. Maybe over a long enough time frame that eventually they'll come out ahead, but most companies won't last that long to come out ahead. Anyway, just showing this crazy web of circles to circles, lines to lines of just the incestuous money flipping around in a circle. And I wonder if I could pull up, just out of funniness, I think there was, let's see if I can find that quickly. Let's see. Hopefully this is just going to play. Let's see. I wonder, I can't find it quickly, but maybe this will play it.
And speaking of money, how about the...
So this is like pretty much what everyone's doing, this is pretty much very accurate for what is happening in AI investment right now. Just because these tech companies who sopped up all the money in the past couple of years are the only ones with money now to invest in AI. It's like a crazy circle. So this sums it up nicely of what's happening right now.
$20 you owe me.
Oh, yeah? Well, I only got 10, so here's 10 and I owe you 10.
Thanks.
Hey, Mo, you owe me 20.
Well, here's 10 and I'll owe you 10.
You owe me 20. Here's 10, I owe you 10. Here's the 10 I owe you.
Here's the 10 I owe you.
Here's the 10 I owe you. Good, now we're all even.
And speaking of money, how about the $20?
Super hilarious old video. Hopefully there isn't any crazy, I don't know, thing that I'll see for that, but it's just a short, quick clip. It's very funny. That's pretty much what's happening here. So anyway, there's one specific mark on this episode that I want to look at, so I'm just gonna skip to it. Hopefully I got the right mark.
Support for the show comes from Anthropic, the team behind.
Because I marked these pretty much, while working out, so sometimes I miss the exact mark, but let's see. If I can get to the mark. It said 14-minute mark. Let's see. Let's get close enough. Oh, right, exactly. Let's go a little bit before. All right, let's see.
Perhaps the greatest technological revolution of the century. That fear is overriding almost everything. In fact, tech CEOs seem to acknowledge this.
So he's talking about that the reason why it's been a crazy big bubble event in incestuous investment is the fear of missing out, FOMO, in terms of investment. No one really knows still exactly when it'll pay off, when, why, or how, but they have to, every company and everybody feels like they have to invest in it or else they'll literally FOMO. So
Zuckerberg himself, he said an AI bubble is, quote, quite possible, but he also said that he would rather, quote, misspend a couple of $100 billion than miss the chance at superintelligence. That is the philosophy of AI investment right now. The prize is too big. You have to get on the train, even if you're running the risk of flying off of the rails and bursting into flames. These AI leaders, they say, no, doesn't matter. We have to do it. You have to do it. Now, where does that lead us? Where are we headed? Not exactly sure. But what I can say is that I am reminded of a scene from one of my favorite Wall Street movies, and that movie is Margin Call, a great movie about the 2008 financial crisis. And what you have is this scene where Jeremy Irons is playing the head of a big Wall Street bank, and he's sitting at lunch and the crisis is unfolding, and he's explaining why these bubbles happen. And he goes through every bubble and every crisis. He goes through 1901, 1929,
1937, 1974, 1987. Jesus, didn't that fucker fuck me up good? 92, 97, 2000, and whatever we want to call this. It's all just the same thing over and over. We can't help ourselves.
We cannot help ourselves.
So he does bring up those same points or those old points of like that this happens as a cycle. They call it the business cycle, saying that, there's, the recession and, overhype and, overgrowth, and the recession clears out the bad companies or whatever. And so just a cycle of growth and trimming the fat, growth, trim the fat, growth, trim the fat. But over a long enough period of time, the line go up. I think what the difference though is in those times, and you can argue about the degree of these next things I'm about to say, but up until where the year that movie takes place, that movie is, entirely fictional. It's kind of like a hypothetical. Here was what happened with an investment firm during those times. It's not based in much fact as the Big Short is, which is another one that people like to talk about or talk about even more. But the difference I think now is that I think these companies mostly believe that no matter how much they invest, it's not only a FOMO thing, because again, AI can do so much. It could do a lot of good, obviously, like cure cancer, but I haven't seen it even come close to curing cancer yet. There's obviously a lot more it can also do just to get rid of people's jobs, because companies don't want to have to pay anyone. They want to be able to control it. They would, any CEO would love to control an employee for 24 hours a day, and have them not have to take breaks and not call out in sick and whatever. But I think the difference is that since 2008, I think most companies believe that, or it's been incentivized that you get bigger to pretty much have a quasi government backing forever. You get so big that the government will have to bail you out because you're now the economy. That's what, Amazon has done now. That's what JP Morgan Chase has done now. That's what, all these, and then, the whole stock market, at least the gains portion of it, if you were to say the stock market were to matter at all in terms of like the actual economy and stuff, which you kind of have to say, is only top 7 companies, because we haven't done antitrust for, ever since Ronald Reagan. So companies now, and up until 2008, there was still like, oh, if you go bankrupt, you go bankrupt. But because of the financialization of everything up until, from the mortgage-backed security, and then to which, financialized real estate even further, once it got, as bastardized as it did, which caused 2008, it made everything be fully connected to the financialization only of it. So every product, every service becomes a financial instrument, which gets traded over and over and over, to where you can have, again, just go watch The Big Short, and that thing has happened to the making a bunch of bets on one tiny little product, to expound it into, 100 times what its original value was, is what is causing like this big glut of dollars to be in, AI investment, and to have increased also the stock market value of all these companies. And so, all of the money that has gone into the current investments, I think people have done more now, or companies, capitalists are the people that have all the money. We're not capitalists because we don't have the money. We're working our day-to-day jobs. If you even hear this, you're not a capitalist. You're just a grunt in the machine. They believe that, or it's been proven now, that they don't have to care if they invest too much or too little. If they just get so big, the government will have to bail them out, because they are the economy. So the FOMO thing, sure, like I said, it could cure cancer. It could still be a good thing, and hopefully it somehow, whatever shakes out in the end, hopefully it does do that. Hopefully it does cure cancer first, or that's more aggressively tackled than trying to get rid of people's jobs. I think that there is like the underlying like the safety net for the capitalists, like again, socialism for the rich and individualism for the poor. I think that's the case. I think that even if, somehow something were to start to fall out, the government, at least the United States government, you still would just give these companies a bunch of money and bail them out in some way. So we would probably, a bunch of people, white collar workers would lose jobs, but the rich would still get richer. With how it's insane that the stock market went, rallied so much during and after COVID, when people literally weren't working, with the PPP loans, in which businesses and a bunch of people that are currently in Congress got money for businesses that suddenly needed money that they never, to keep their workers employed, but they never paid it on that. They just took the money. They just took it, and it still hasn't been a real investigation into that, because it was Democrats and Republicans. It was all people in power that got the money, so no one's investigated that portion. But that's what I think is more that no one's talking about on this, is that I think there's just an implicit guarantee now of you get big enough and you smooch the current politicians, even more so than just being a lobbyist to get, legislation passed. It's like you don't even have to get legislation passed. You can just like not even do anything. You just give a couple $1 million to Donald Trump's presidential library, and then you're just have a backing of the U.S. Mint no matter what. So that's what only thing I wanted to bring up here is like the FOMO, and again more of the talk of who's investing in who, because it's just a circle. And I guess you could say technically, yeah, an economy is a circle of money going around and round and round. It's kind of the point. Money shouldn't stop in one hand, because that's the point, again, of dollars, the point of a currency. I don't want to have to make like if I'm a shoemaker and someone else is a butcher, I don't always need shoes, and he doesn't always need shoes. I don't always need meat. But if we had a currency, we can always do that every day. I can go buy meat every day because we use the currency instead of having to trade. So anyway, that's all I want to talk about on that. I'll skip right into the Jon Stewart portion of this. And I do have the actual video of it, so I want to start on this bit. So it's only in the beginning, so it's kind of an intro I could play into, but I don't want to. He just gentleman here, Geoffrey Hinton, who again won the Nobel Prize for his neural network work, won it in physics, which he finds kind of funny because he wasn't a physicist necessarily, just where he won the Nobel Prize for. I don't fully know exactly what the whole paper was. I never read it, but I just knew people know him from developing neural networks, which is what every model is built on now. Which is funny, because then if everything is built on just neural networks only, there's obviously other more efficient models that can tackle different problems, but everyone's just trying to take a chatbot, which is what LLMs are, to do certain things. So people are pretty much right now using a hammer to do everything. If they don't have to care about compute costs and the water that we drink, then yeah, just throw the hammer at it and it'll eventually get the answer, maybe. But it also can maybe get wrong. So anyway, let's listen to this part here. He's just explaining the difference between how computers used to learn, or how we force them to learn, versus neural networks.
Now, these are the new neural networks. The old machine learning, those were not considered neural networks. And when you say neural networks, meaning your work was sort of, the genesis of it was in the 70s, where you thought you were studying the brain. Is that correct?
I was trying to come up with ideas about how the brain actually learned. And there's some things we know about that. It learns by changing the strengths of connections between brain cells.
Wait, so explain that. What it says, it learns by changing the connections. So if you show a human something new, brain cells will actually make new connections within brain cells.
It won't make new connections. It'll be connections that were there already.
Okay.
But the main way it operates is it changes the strength of those connections.
Wow.
So if you think of it from the point of view of
so that's what hopefully a lot of people already know, but it is just the strengthening of the connections in the computer is just cheering up a dial, right? It's just increasing the value of go down this path, because it's still partially probabilistic in that it has two paths, and it'll just say go down this left path, 99% of the time, only go down the right 1% of the time. So it's mostly going to go because that connection's is stronger, but sometimes it'll go down the other side, and it will, by it I mean the neural network. So just talking about the slight difference, instead of being a 0 and 1, it is more probabilistic. And what Jon Stewart gets here sometimes wrong, or is called wrong, but is still technically right, is that a computer still in itself underneath the core of the neural networks is still zeros and ones. It's been compute. The chips that are used and the compute has gotten so cheap. The chips that are used have gotten so much smaller, and the compute is so much cheaper that a lot of the compiling underneath has gotten so obfuscated that you don't even know that it all still, because it is a computer, that we have, it's still zeros and ones very far underneath it. It's like how people complain that about Python being so easy when it is just like a C compiler underneath it is nothing but C again, and so or assembly code, and so that's partially what neural networks is on top of that as well. Again, the strengthening of the connections is just numbers of go down this path, yes or no, pretty much. But don't need to go into all of that. Just wanted to say what neural networks are doing, and maybe we'll get to the portion later about how Geoffrey here says that the way a computer. No, we'll get to it. Never mind. Let's skip ahead and skip to the 14-minute mark that I wanted to get to. Let's see. Hopefully it's close. So there's no ad in here, right? There's an ad. Oh yeah, there is an ad. How long is it? Probably 30 seconds. So let's go to the 15.
Contacts. Ready to say yes.com. 40 only.
Let's go back to 1949.
Oh boy. All right.
So here's a theory from someone called Donald Hebb about how you change connection strengths.
Okay.
If neuron A goes ping, and then shortly afterwards neuron B goes ping, increase the strength of the connection.
Okay.
That's a very simple rule. That's called the Hebb rule.
Right. The Hebb rule is if neuron A goes ping, increase the connection, and B goes ping, increase that connection.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, as soon as computers came along and you could do computer simulations, people discovered that rule by itself doesn't work. What happens is all the connections gets very strong and all the neurons go ping all at the same time and you have a seizure.
Oh, okay.
That's a shame, isn't it?
That is a shame.
There's got to be something that makes connections weaker as well as making them stronger.
Right. There's got to be some discernment.
Yes.
Okay.
If I can digress for about a minute.
Boy, I'd like that.
Okay. Suppose we wanted to make a neural network that had multiple layers of neurons, and it's to decide whether an image contains a bird or not.
Like a CAPTCHA, like when you go on and it said you
is
look
this
at it.
Exactly. We want to be able to,
okay.
We want to solve that CAPTCHA with a neural net.
Okay.
So the input to the neural net, the sort of bottom layer of neurons, is a bunch of neurons, and they go ping to different levels of, they have different strengths of ping, and they represent the intensities of the pixels in the image.
Okay.
So if it's 1,000 by 1,000 image, you've got 1,000,000 neurons that are going ping at different rates to represent how intense each pixel is.
Okay.
That's your input. Now you've got to turn that into a decision. Is this a bird or not?
Wow. So that decision. So let me ask you a question then. Do you program in, because strength of pixel doesn't strike me as a really useful tool in terms of figuring out if it's a bird. Figuring out if it's a bird seems like the tool would be, are those feathers? Is that a beak? Is that a crest? Yeah.
Here goes. So the pixels by themselves don't really tell you whether it's a bird.
Okay.
Because you can have birds that are bright and birds that are dark, and you can have birds flying and birds sitting down, and you can have an ostrich in your face, and you can have a seagull in the distance. They're all birds. Okay, so what do you do next? Well, sort of guided by the brain, what people did next was said, let's have a bunch of edge detectors. So what we're going to do, because of course you can recognize birds quite well in line drawings,
Right.
So yeah, I'm gonna pause that there. I wanted it to just to hear a little bit about like the premise that they go about for 2 hours, about how do you decide what a bird is through images. Let me skip ahead further. I just wanted that premise stated and go to the 45-minute mark because they talk a long time about the history, which whatever. Like we all have brains. So skip here. Hopefully I didn't miss another ad. No, I did. Let's see. So it's right here. So let's see if 45 will be right. It should be the next one, but let's see.
Function identically to ours? Are they at that point? Will they get to that point?
Well, no,
will they be able to? Because I'm assuming we're still ahead processing wise.
Okay.
Are humans still ahead of neural networks?
They're not exactly like us, but
Okay.
The point is they're much more like us than standard computer software is like us. Standard computer software,
Right.
someone programmed in a bunch of rules, and if it follows the rules, it does what they expect it to.
That's right. So you're saying this is the difference.
This is just a different kettle of fish altogether.
Right.
And it's much more like us.
Now, as you're doing this and you're in it, and I imagine the excitement is, even though it's occurring over a long period of time, you're seeing these improvements occur over that time. And it must be incredibly fulfilling and interesting. And you're watching it explode into.
And so, whatever, he says a thing. But again, from what Geoffrey is saying, that neural networks are more like us than computers had been. So, yeah, keep that bit as well. And then I kind of want to skip ahead again. I didn't write down the mark, but let's see if I can't. Let's see. I think it might be here because it's before they all ramble around at the end. But let's see. Hopefully it's right here.
They weren't talking about, these were experts on AI. They weren't talking about the problem of consciousness or anything philosophical. But in the paper, they said the AI became aware that it was being tested. They said something like that. Okay. Now.
So he's talking about they're doing testing on whether the AI will be able to, like, where if we're at risk of an AI taking over, but if we put in safeguards or we can like delete it or unplug it or whatever. And he's saying that in one of the testings that people were doing to see if it could do that, it was lying. The AI was lying, saying, "Oh yeah," and it was asking, "Am I being tested?" Or so it, even though the testers knew that this AI could do XYZ, it was trying to lie to hide its intelligence from the testers, from the human testers.
In normal speech, if you said someone became aware of this, you'd say that means they were conscious of it, right? Awareness and consciousness are much the same thing.
Right. Yeah, I think I would say that.
Okay, so now I'm going to say something that you'll find very confusing.
All right.
My belief is that nearly everybody has a complete misunderstanding of what the mind is.
Yes.
Their misunderstanding is at the level of people who think the Earth was made 6,000 years ago. Is that level of misunderstanding?
Really?
Yes.
Okay, because that's so I like the way we are generally like flat earthers when it
We're
comes
like
to
flat earthers when it comes to understanding the mind.
In what sense of that what are we not understanding about the mind?
Okay, I'll give you one example.
Yeah.
Suppose
So unfortunately, this will be a long example, but we'll have to hear it to get to what I need to say about it.
drop some acid and I tell you...
You look like the type.
No comment. I was around in the 60s.
I know, sir. I know. I'm aware.
And I tell you, I'm having the subjective experience of little pink elephants floating in front of me.
Sure, been there.
Okay. Now, most people interpret that in the following way.
Mm-hmm.
There's something like an inner theatre called my mind. And in this inner theatre, there's little pink elephants floating around. And I can see them. Nobody else can see them because they're in my mind. So the mind's like a theatre. And experiences are actually things. And I'm experiencing I have the subjective experience of these little pink elephants.
You're saying in the midst of a hallucination, most people would understand that it's not real. that this is something being conjured.
No, I'm saying something different. I'm saying when I'm talking to them, I'm having the hallucination, but when I'm talking to them, they interpret what I'm saying as this. I have an inner theater called my mind, and in my inner theater, there's little pink elephants.
Okay.
I think that's a just completely wrong model.
Right.
We have models that are very wrong and that we're very attached to. Like take any religion.
I love how you just drop bombs in the middle of stuff, and then I got that could be a whole other conversation.
That was just common sense.
No, I respect that. When you say theater of the mind, you're saying that the mind, the way we view it as a theater, is wrong.
It's all wrong. So let me give you an alternative.
Right.
So I'm going to say the same thing to you without using the word subjective experience. Here we go.
Okay.
My perceptual system is telling me fibs. But if it wasn't lying to me, there would be little pink elephants out there.
Oh,
that's the same statement.
God.
That's the same statement.
That's the mind?
So basically, these things that we call mental and think they're made of spooky stuff, like qualia,
right?
They're actually, what's funny about them is they're hypothetical. The little pink elephants aren't really there. If they were there, my perceptual system would be functioning normally. And it's a way for me to tell you how my perceptual system's malfunctioning.
By giving you an experience that you can't. So how would...
And so I think that's enough to get to what I'm saying. So what... We already know that everybody's reality is subjective. Whatever they're talking about, whatever they're doing is entirely subjective. Who has put information on the internet are people. It's only been people. Some of it can be, in hard truths because of hopefully we have scientific papers that people then go and test within this country and without this country to, with scientific rigor, following the scientific method to prove them over and over and over. Hopefully so we can have some ground truths that we can all agree to. But everything that's been written on the internet, I don't really know how much more of the internet is random people like myself versus, scientists or people that actually do the work to get the hard data to put things on the internet. But what I'm getting at is all these LLMs, all like, ChatGPT, all the data that it's souped up. They've souped up, obviously, these scientific papers and copyrighted work that they didn't pay for, that they stole. Even though a judge said that they didn't steal it, I guess allegedly stole. Even though a judge said that they didn't steal it because they transformed it enough, whatever. But if there's regurgitating the same thing back, whatever. It's built on subjectivity. And then what he even talks about in this video, I think before this mark or afterwards, and what Geoffrey talks about, let me pull it up so I don't stare at his face or whatever. That even the neural network has its own subjectivity. So the neural network, not only is it trained off of subjective data that's from people, so it could already have just wrong information. Its own, because we don't tell it how to learn something, it could learn something in an entirely wrong way. There are some, or I guess more and more tools that try to explain how these neural networks get to their measurements, excluding LLMs. LLMs are neural networks. They're just more crazy or whatever, but we just say neural network in general. There are tools that try and do that. Like one's called Shapley model. That's like the most common one because it's easy. You have these various features in the neural network, and you get what your current measurement is, and then whatever that is, you can use your R-squared score, whatever the score you want to use, to say that this model is good because of this score. And what the Shapley model will do is take one feature away, and then try and get the same score, and then see how it compares, and then put it back and take another one away, and it does all of that. And it's seeing how much the measurement is worsened by taking away that feature. And if the model gets way worse from the most worst from taking away this one specific feature, it says, okay, this feature, by taking it away, the model got way worse. So this feature must be the most important. And then it happened really bad, but not as bad. So this other feature must be secondly important. So it's just guessing, like we're even just guessing how the model got to it. But that means that not only are we given it subjective information, like especially if it's written text, which you can, all the crazy news stories, like even from, and it's been, going downhill for a long time, but it's going to even go worse. Like even supposedly neutral, like CNN things, liberal bias, whatever you want to say, liberal, even in the not like liberal versus conservative, but just like a crazy story from CNN saying that Trump wants to invade Canada. What are the pros and cons of doing that? Like that's even an insane way to phrase that whole scenario. But again, all of these LLMs are being trained off subjective people's perceptions, which George is talking about, that could be their perception lying to them, which we already know. But then the LLM is just taking that as a fact, and on top of that, it's having its own subjective experience. And if that's the case, then the only thing that the LLM really is maybe a faster person at getting at this data with no accountability. Like you can't, like it's still up to a person to go and use the AI and say, we're going to do this. And a person that actually lives in reality has to be held accountable for the decisions that they make using that LLM. But that's what I try to tell more people as companies start to say, use AI and everything and do this and that. And like, we can use it to whatever. It's also assuming that the code that it does use is like the best code to use. Like if you just go and say, give me code to do this, it's going to give you something, and maybe it's the most frequently used thing, but doesn't mean it's the best thing to use. And even if it does pick some code to give you, it's the neural network, which is the LLM, which is neural network, still has its own subjective experience of the data. And we don't even know how it comes to conclusions. We guess. We don't know because we allow it to learn on its own. So that's what I wanted to get at with this. In addition to the incestuous investment, that were like those things all on top of each other. Like I want AI to cure cancer and to use it to do so. But all those things on top of each other, the incestuous investment, the subjective experience of the subjectiveness of the data that gets put in, and the subjective experience of the neural networks themselves, like that just seems like, I don't know. It kind of like it partially reminds me of like throwing a bunch of money at somebody to have, a million monkeys writing Shakespeare and seeing what that comes out, like that super old adage or whatever, which I partially misused, but I don't care. But yeah, so saying all of that, I wanted to watch the story that made me actually do this stream today, which I didn't really want to because I just wanted to play Silent Hill F. But Klarna, if for those who don't know, Affirm Klarna stocks surge on new collaboration with Google. Affirm and Klarna are the buy now pay later. So we used to have layaway in the past. We like at any store, put a product on layaway and you pay it in installments, and once you do the final payment, you come and pick it up. But now you don't even need a credit card you don't need to do that. We went to credit cards, but now you don't have a credit card that you increase the balance for, and then pay it off, hopefully pay it off before you have to pay interest on it. But then maybe you do get interest, whatever. The buy now pay later firms now say, oh, okay, yeah, use this instead, and if you pay it off in 4 payments, whatever payments we decide, then you don't have to pay interest. But if you don't pay it off, then you're gonna have interest on blah blah blah. So those buy now pay later firms, so they are doing a collaboration with Google, and what I don't care about this. The first partnership, I want to look at the quotes here of from Klarna's Chief Marketing Officer, David Sandstrom. What did he say? He said, early pilots already show the potential. AI-driven creative concepts, so more, creative AI slop like Sora, from dynamic digital lookbooks to hyper-personalized product campaigns, boosted time spent in our app by 15% and increased orders by 50%. For us, this is proof that when creativity meets AI, the results can transform the way people shop. And what this is saying is, and this is the first side of this thing that people have talked about before, and it's happened, even before AI and stuff, which is surveillance pricing. So I want to talk about this first, though, which is personalized product campaigns. It's been the case for a long time, even on TV, that companies will want to advertise, during specific TV shows or like events. Like there's going to be certain products advertised during like a WWF match versus watching Oprah during the middle of the day. There's going to be different products advertised because they're still trying to hit a certain demographic. And so with the internet and then with social media and then with smartphones, that's allowed more and more data to be more specified, right? So they can find advertisers, and companies can advertise more directly at the very specific group that they're trying to target. But what this is even saying is that they're not trying to target just like a general group of like, we want to target men in their 30s that go to this certain area. So maybe we'll advertise a certain restaurant that's in this area or whatever. They're trying to advertise not only to you, but they're trying to learn what specific advertisements would trigger you to make a purchase, like you specifically. Like what would make you want to buy a pair of shoes? Is it because you run all the time? Then maybe there's like 2 shoes that Nike has. Is it that you run all the time? Okay, we're going to give you the running version of this shoe. And as your certain like size, we'll give you that specific shoe and a certain price or discount. Or are you, do you want to look cool because you seem to be going out to these bars more frequently than you did before? So maybe you want to wear these really cool shoes because you're trying to meet some girl or whatever. So the hyper personalized bit is even more so than it ever has been. So using AI to suck up all the data from these other apps that they already trade through these different data brokers, and kind of what I'm saying, just might be just an advertisement for using some of those. I'm not going to say them, but some of those companies that do delete your stuff for you off the internet to try and tell them, hey, get rid of my data. But not only is it hyper personalized, but then once they get the hyper personalized product campaigns towards just you, they could also maybe make hyper personalized like ads like exactly for you. Like you would be the only person to see that ad at all ever. Like it'll just create an image or a video that only you will see that this product does this. We already know like a bunch of products can just lie. There's a lot of like health products that that you see at the bottom, like pre-workout, obviously, which I do use when I go to the gym. It says like these claims are not certified by the FDA or haven't been approved or tested or whatever. But a lot of these products can just say, I'm going to make some product that maybe doesn't harm you, but it does nothing for you and just expensive. We're going to make an advertisement that says that it'll do this because we, took all your data and took all your things and analyzed it. We had, a bunch of PhDs figure this model out to then say to you, or to create for you, here's this product, here's this advertisement that is specifically only for you. Only you will ever see it. Once you click off this page, you'll never see it again. And then here's a price on the other side. So in terms of surveillance pricing, not only will they find an ad that works specifically for you, but they're going to try and get the highest price that they can. And so maybe that'll be the only time, and it already happens with a bunch of products in which they're trying to, companies are trying to charge you a different price or a higher price depending on who you are. There's already plenty of cases of that's happened. This is just it even further. So, or even crazier, like literally fine tuning, not only the ad itself, but then the price, like doing that equilibrium of how do we have to need to tweak the advertisement so you see it and click on it or buy it, and how do we change the pricing so you buy it. And so and if they're saying that they're already increased the time on their app and increased orders by 50%, that's just I don't know the veracity of those, if that's true or not, because I haven't looked into, I don't know how much of the data is available, but that's all terrifying. Of just all it is to say is that these companies have money for whatever reason and are partnering with Google when they could be using all of that compute to cure cancer instead. Like they're And why wouldn't they want to cure cancer? Because if you don't have cancer, that would mean less money that's flowing around. You have to spend less if you're not sick. So like, okay, well, screw that. We can make more money doing this by making super specific to you. Like only you would ever see this price today. You would only see this ad today. And just to get money and spend more money today for whatever reason. When it does nothing for you, it's just trying to take your money. So this little, only a few paragraphs, but it says like everything that's completely wrong with how people would use AI in its current form. Because even in like AI driven concepts, like again, they're just using a chat bot, LLMs, when neural networks can do a lot more than just predict the next word in a sentence, and creating things that you would want people to create, like movies and, actors actually being in movies, not being AI. But just a terrifying, stupid thing of how can we hyper take your dollars, which is like just terrifying. It's terrifying to ever think to like go into a store. The craziest thing to me would be that if they could get it super hyper personalized, like at least for price, this refocus on the pricing side, it would mean that they could there'd be obviously floors and ceilings to the price, but they could just price everything to get like a certain percentage of your money, right? Like if somebody made like $200,000, then maybe a gallon of milk is $50. And if you made $100,000 a year, then your gallon of milk would be $25. Like every product that you'd buy would be it would be based off a percentage of your either income that they know about you, because they buy it from like JP Morgan or something, or it's they guess they maybe they somehow don't have enough data on you. They guess like based off the location data that they get from Google or something, that they're able to guess what you might make. And so, okay, well, let's charge them this percentage, which is why I don't use, obviously, even though they have coupons in them, I don't use like grocery apps, because I don't want, they're all just, web pages anyway, wrapped around software that you will get in trouble if you would mess with their app in any way. So, but yeah, that's just like, even though I'm using Chrome right now, so obviously it has a bunch of my data and browsing data to do advertisements and whatnot. But this is probably the most insane and crazy and terrifying thing of just hyper personalized. You will only see this ad right now. You will only see this price right now. And for what? It's not serving up. It's not making your life better. It isn't at all. It's not making anybody's life better. But yeah, so anyway, that's all I had for AI. The other thing I'd bring up, or wanted to bring up, was it like, and I don't really care what people think about him, but Adam Conover, the two podcasts I'd recommend from this was, he recently just talked about gentrification with Cory Doctorow. So really good talk about like just the uses it could be, AI could be used for, but how websites got to where they are right now. And, people know a lot already about it, but it's just another good talk about like more recent things that have happened and trying to get regulation around these things. I didn't watch the Stop AI Slop, which is I haven't watched, and probably won't, because I already hear enough about it. But that's really interesting. And then the other guy who's been talking about it way more, or talking about AI and its negative externalities for a much longer time, like pretty much since ChatGPT came out, is, let's see, how long ago was this? Probably very long ago. Let's see, Ed Zitron. I think Ed. Yeah, so, and then 7 months ago, wow, the AI hoax is destroying America with Ed Zitron. So Ed Zitron is good. A lot of people, obviously, in the tech or AI community would don't like him very much, because maybe he is very more doomeristic, and probably rightfully so. But those two podcasts are kind of good, because then they always like have books that you could actually read instead of just hearing just another podcast. So anyway, that's all I want to talk about there. So thanks for listening. I'm going to take a break for just a minute, but probably get right back into Silent Hill F in just a second.